Welcome back to another episode of Talkin Tough. I am absolutely pumped about today. As always, we are proudly brought to you by Ski for Life, and we are here to have a chat with the average Joe, have a laugh, and redefine what it means to be tough. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm going great, thanks, Banjo. How's everything in your world, Blinder?
Yeah, no, we're going all right, going good. But I tell you what, I need to get it off my chest.
Yep.
Dogs.
Yeah, right.
Dogs are by far
Yep.
some of the worst things and the best things for your mental health. And I got two of them, as you know, mate. I have an old dog, Aussie.
Yep.
He's 11 years old. He's been bitten by two snakes and he has lost his mind. He's gone that senile. It is giving me the absolute shits.
He's a good dog, though. Great dog, Oz.
Well, he's testing me. I'll tell you what. Like,
He can't do a lot now, though. He's a bit banged up.
he goes outside and he literally walks out, and I reckon I could count to 32 seconds. He'll look up in the sky and just go, oof, oof. And I'll go out the door and I go, mate, what are you barking at? And he looks at me and he goes, I don't know. I go, get back inside. And I've got to tie him up inside because otherwise he goes and eats the daughter's toys. I put him outside and all he does is bark, do my head. And then I've got the young dog that's one of the best things for my mental health. And, mate, I'm telling you, we have got an awesome guest on today that I know she's got a dog, Tiff Cooke, coach, facilitator, boxer, podcast host. Mate, welcome to Talkin Tough. That's my vent and spiel about my dogs. How are you? How are your dogs?
Mate, if you think a dog's bad, you should get yourself a cat. They've got nothing on Bear the cat.
Bear the cat.
Yeah.
So just.
But you've got a dog as well?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your dog's name?
Luna.
Oh,
Bear and Luna.
Yeah.
And they wrestle.
And when you
They're
said
the best
Luna, you
mates.
smiled then. So I'm picturing Bear being a bit of a prick and Luna being.
They're both lovely.
Oh, they are, right.
But Bear is a prick, but
Okay.
she's very much like me. So
Yeah.
she's also very lovely too. But, you know, the other day she opened up the wardrobe. I'd shut her out when I'm podcasting. I go out to my bedroom. She's opened the cupboard door. She's pulled all of the clothes off of every shelf.
Yeah, right.
Well, you don't need children then.
No, I don't.
And what do you do? Do you discipline? Or do you just sit there, yell,
I can't do
scream, rant?
anything.
You're
I'm
nothing?
trying to
Yeah.
put them away, and then she's jumping back
Back
in,
in,
and I'm putting
getting
it away,
more-
and she's
more
jumping
done.
it back in, and I try to fold something up, and she wrestles me for it.
Unreal.
That's why I
get
never
a
have a cat.
So welcome, Tiff. It's so good to have you as part of the Talkin Tough podcast. As you would have heard just a moment ago, Benny said that when he said the word average Joe,
I nearly
saw
fell
you.
over backwards.
You almost
I
you
beg your
sat right
pardon.
up in your chair, mate. It was.
Did you get your back up?
It's true. We've got to know. Dickhead policy. Do you pass for that or?
No, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
beautiful. So,
Yep.
so average Joe, we wouldn't consider you an average Joe. In our eyes, you're an absolute champion. That's why we've had you to come on and have a bit of a chat today, an open and honest conversation about
An average champion.
I'm pretty average. Let's be honest.
But more importantly, we're here to, as Ben said, it's called Talkin Tough, and it's all about redefining what it means to be tough in the modern world, and taking the old school of thought, where it's we've got a few grabs, and we've spoken about in other episodes about being tough, showing a tough exterior. Don't show your emotions, just suck it up and get on with it. That type of toughness. Throwing that out and talking about what it actually means to be tough, resilient, and how to get through day to day in the modern world. So I spoke to Ben and I said, hey. We've been on Tiff's podcast in the past. She's an absolute champion.
Don't know why she had us on.
I'm sure our listeners...
Have you got many listens on our potty?
yeah, well, you were like
about 3.5.
so loved by everybody.
We actually
very
came
nice
back
of
and did a
you.
repeat episode. So
Yeah.
we must
have gone all right.
People
Yeah,
mustn't
you
have hated
went brilliantly.
us, which is good. So Tiff, welcome. It's a real pleasure to be here. We would love to start off by, as we always do, asking our guest, when you were growing up, what was your definition of what tough meant, based on what you'd heard, seen, what you've raised to believe? What did tough mean to you?
Yeah, you know what? What's funny is I had a real tough attitude and a lot of attitude for 29 years. I always say 29 years. I had my first boxing fight at 29, and over the next 2 years of delving into that sport, my self-awareness around myself really went deep. So I was a tough, certain, a self-assured kid. I was very independent, and I thought that was just life, and I thought that was just me being awesome. But and it was,
Yeah, right, eh?
and it was right. But when I reflected on some of the things that I did when I stepped into boxing and started to question things, that made me redefine what is tough. And I still have a lot of conversations these days about resilience and what is resilience. And, asking the question, is it resilience or is it dissociation? Is it resilience or is it trauma?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question
Well,
or was
definitely
just a
does.
tangent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
no.
absolutely does. But I'd love to sort of go back sort of one step. Where do you reckon that, like you said, for 29 years you had that tough attitude. Where do you reckon you got that from? growing up?
Independence.
Tell us about growing up.
So I grew up from my first memories were in a shop. So at about 3 years old, my parents bought into a 7-day-week shop. I had a brother that was 7 years older than me. Yep. And so they were very busy and I was very busy too. But I was not surrounded, there was not a lot of interaction with my family at that time in terms of them having time to spend. And so I
you're
was
forced to
really,
entertain yourself.
Yeah, forced to entertain myself. And we weren't an overly communicative family. So we weren't one. So when I think back of childhood now and I think about maybe reflecting on how other people interact and are in families and relationships, I don't have that in my memory banks. Like I don't have memories of being, talking about feelings and being close and sharing how we felt. So it was very much go and entertain yourself. If stuff scares you, well, find a way to be impressive and people will think, like showing people that you're tough, showing people that you're okay, because it doesn't really matter if you're not, because no one's around. So I think that upon reflection, it wasn't how I felt at the time. It's when you're a kid, you adapt. This is the world you're in and you adapt and you have coping mechanisms and it can really develop who you become.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. And you said that you weren't a communicative family.
Hard word
word.
to say, isn't it?
I know.
That's a
Go
good
me
one.
for
Could
saying
you
it.
have picked an easier word for
tongue twister.
people
That
that are
is.
simple like me?
Weren't chatty.
The average Joes on this podcast?
Weren't chatty.
So
Spell that
you
for me.
weren't and I'm not going to say the word again, family. But now I've had chats with you, Ben's had chats with you. You have your own podcast. What you do is communicate, and very well for that matter. So, at some point in time, you had to learn those skills, right?
Yeah. And if I look back, there's been a long time in my life that I've always been trying to do better, be better, learn better, and change my mindset and be deliberate about what I know and how I do things. The podcast, so there was the boxing ring that opened up the kind of the self-awareness door and what are these traits that are such strengths for you and are they really strengths? Did they really come from a healthy place or what are you running from? So there was a few years kind of delving into all of that and getting comfortable with it. And then I started the podcast in 2020 and just like the boxing ring became this metaphorical playground for me to observe me and learn about feelings and emotions and cause and effect and commitment and dedication and the things that you say. The thing about boxing is, or any combat sport I guess, is when you're in an environment like that and you need to respond and you're fueled by the fight or flight chemicals in your body, it doesn't matter what front you put on, you will behave before you have a chance to step into a story. So you'll react to the punch. You'll either hide or cower or you'll fight back. So, and you'll have those reactions and I get goosebumps when I talk about it because they were the things that I got to observe in there and that's what made me question, well, hang on, what are you scared of and why don't you feel this or that or why don't you feel punches? And, the word vulnerability came up for me personally. I was like, I'm not scared of a punch in the face, but gee, don't try to get too close and get to know me.
So physically felt very tough and you could take anything, but emotionally maybe not.
Yeah. And I think it's a big thing to question that because we tell ourselves stories for so long and then I believed the story. It wasn't that I thought it was a story. It wasn't that I thought I was putting on a facade. But I remember going back to Tassie I'd lived here. So I moved here when I was 20, 19, turned 20. And
what caused the move?
Tassie's small, mate. I had bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, so straight over to Melbourne.
Yes, I remember going back and realising one day, observing myself put on this front, like talk differently, like show, like being a little show pony, like, oh, yeah. And I was like, why do you talk like that when you're in front of your family? Because I was putting on the front of look what I'm going and doing. And I remember so I got the boxing and then from that, obviously I went into a lot of self-development and reflection and did some therapy. I remember sitting in a therapist's room one day and talking and then all of a sudden mid-sentence realising, like, I was telling her about coming to Melbourne, and it's like I came to Melbourne and I just burst into tears. I was like, I came to Melbourne to kind of show everyone what I could do and that I was good and that I was worthy. And what's actually happened over those 10 years, first 10 years of being here, is I'd distanced myself more. I'd broken the relationships. I'd become less relatable, and realising that my actions and what I deeply was wanting to get out of everything would like worlds apart. I was running in the opposite direction. So it was really interesting.
Where do you think that came from? Like that realisation, sitting there in therapy, bursting into tears and realising that you've come over to, one, probably escape in a way, but also to prove a point, distance yourself by doing that. Why do you think that was? Like in that first 20 years, if you don't mind me asking, what do you reckon happened? What caused you to sort of have that deep, innate desire to prove to people that you're more than what you were?
I think for myself, when I think about it, I think it came from feelings of unworthiness or not shame and unworthiness from whatever I might be holding on to. But I think I wouldn't be the only person. I wasn't aware of that. It's not like I walked around going, oh, I'm ashamed and unworthy. I'm not good enough. There was that part of me. There was that facade that I believed that was, I'm going to do this. I'm really confident. Yep, we'll go kill it. I never explored the stuff underneath. And so when you go to therapy or have conversations like this and you start speaking, it's amazing what can come into your realisation, and you go and you know it because your body reacts. You kind of go, shit, I've never thought of that before. I've never thought of it that way, and that just landed with me, and oh my goodness, that's what I've done.
Were you able to pinpoint a moment in therapy looking back then that sort of caused that, or do you think it was just this underlying thing of sort of shame and unworthiness and you can't really pinpoint a reason why?
I'd say an underlying thing. I think, like, for me, a lot of the like therapy over the years is like it's a journey. Like I thought when I first started therapy, I was like, okay, this thing's come up, this memory's come up in the boxing ring, this happened. I thought for my whole life that putting it in a box and pretending that it never happened would make it go away, and it didn't exist. But now in my early 30s, I'm thinking about it all the time, and it's coming up and it's causing me. And then I was researching what are the effects of holding on to this experience that's happened.
In a health setting, yep.
And does that correlate with some of my personality traits? And I was like, it did. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's
this big journey of self-discovery, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of like if we, talk a little bit about, you said earlier that, at 29 you discovered boxing.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting sort of thing. And had you ever done any boxing before?
Oh, God,
had you done fitness or anything? Well, you sit across the table from us now and you're pretty ripped, mate. So you're looking like you're ready to go.
Doesn't look ripped to me.
In the ring. Yeah, you need to work a little harder. But in all honesty, you look like you're ready to roll. So you're 29, you discover boxing. How did that happen?
I'd started doing a few boxing sessions at PCYC, which is funny because that's where I train. I'm a trainer now. It's where I train my clients. And I remember pink gloves like flailing around and thinking to myself, I want, like, I'll try really hard and I want the trainer to come and tell me like that I should fight or I should learn, or I wanted to be told I was special. I wanted to be told that I had something. Because I didn't feel in the mindset and that I had at that time was, you'll be told if you're good enough at something, you can't just go and learn it. And there's no way I would have said, oh, can you teach me to do this? I just didn't have the mindset for it.
And goes back to that worthiness piece, hey?
Yeah. But then I went to a talk on resilience, and it was above the PT Academy, and downstairs was the basement boxing gym, and there was a big they give us a tour.
Yeah.
So we get to talk about resilience for 90 minutes, get all fired up, go downstairs, see this poster on the wall that says 0 to Hero Executive Fight Club. Dudes in suits. It's like 0 to Hero. And I was like, big show off me. I'll do it. So I loved doing stuff that girls didn't do. I wanted to do it to stand out. I wanted to do it to be different. I did a lot of bold things, and for me, I look back now and I go, that was because I didn't have the confidence to use my voice to be me, to speak up.
What sort
so
of
it was
things?
like I will show. So 16, 17, dyeing my hair bright pink. Like I had to have this bold look. I had to have this bold personality. I had to be loud, loudest in the room. And really, that was just making up for the fact that I really wasn't that personality on the inside, or I didn't have the confidence to really
Just
speak
hiding
and be
something
me.
maybe.
Yeah, just creating the facade.
Yeah.
I'll be really bold. I'll be really loud. I'll do this.
So something happened, and so you've found boxing, and then someone's obviously given you that acknowledgement because you obviously went on to have.
I saw that poster and I was like, any nuffy's allowed to do this.
Yeah,
so,
but then you had a fight, right?
Yeah.
So how long until you saw the poster to then you're in the ring fighting somebody?
So it was a 12-week challenge.
Oh,
Yeah, so 12 weeks.
Holy.
And me and my big mouth, I told everybody, I had to sell tickets. So in order to participate, you got to sell 10 or 20 tickets, I can't remember, for people to come. So I'd rallied, sold all these people $250 tickets to come and watch me. I'm like, I'm fighting.
All your mates first.
Yep.
Fill the arena.
Oh, absolutely,
And they were
mate.
just cheering you on.
Yeah, that's the way.
My
But
goodness.
it was terrifying. I remember 3 weeks in training and we're starting to, gloves on your face and with your partner in front of you and you're just floating the gloves across and you're learning the concept of blocking punches. I got a knot in my throat.
Wait, hang on. You got to fight in 12 weeks, and you're learning at the 3 week mark how to block first time ever. How to block punches. Were you nervous?
We sparred once or twice before the fight. We'd only sparred once or twice before that first fight. It was crazy. I was terrified, standing there with the knot in my throat, thinking, because I would not cry in public at that point. I'm holding back tears, and as soon as this class ends, I'm going to sit in my car and cry. And it was so confronting, and I just thought, I can't keep my eyes open. I've got a knot in my throat. I've told all of these people I'm fighting, and I can't even keep my eyes open when someone's pretending to throw a punch at me.
Were you close to quitting? Were you close to just walking away and saying this is a bad idea?
Or you're too proud?
I don't think I ever. It was terrifying the whole time, and I never considered quitting. But I always talk about how loud the two versions of voices were, and one was the version that knew, in no uncertain terms, that I was pretty useless. I was uncoordinated, flailing around, and I know that my trainers didn't have a lot of faith in me either at that point. And I knew that. But also when I'd go for walks and I was just obsessed. I would think about training and I would be going for walks and I knew. I had this knowing, and it was just determination, like I will win this. That's the only way. And that was the determination. It was like letting that speak louder, just letting that voice in all of the time, because the other one's going to come in.
Yeah.
Like every time I go to training, that other one's going to be there with me. So when I'm alone and I'm thinking about stuff, I'm just letting that other voice in. But it was interesting to kind of...
So you got to the ring. Tell us about the fight.
Mate. So we're sitting there. So that I didn't sleep the night before. I decided to get nervous just, the night before.
Wow.
No sleep.
Hang on. Who were you fighting? And did you know that from the start? When did you find that out? Like,
so we all trained
I want to be
together.
able to picture the opponent here.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good story. My opponent was a girl. And I wasn't a PT at the time, remember? I was just an office worker that used to drink on every bloody weekend and eat all of the chocolate in the world.
Yeah.
And the opponent of mine was the personal trainer at the gym. She was ripped with a six-pack, and she wasn't training with us. She was training with the boys. So she wasn't training with us, so we didn't see her a lot. But she was,
You guys get along? She was pretty scary, intimidating.
No, she was nice. We got along. She was nice. She was nice. But
Does that make it harder to want to punch him in the face?
No, I'm good with that, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're happy to punch whoever you like?
Yeah.
She was having to bloody punch you in the face.
For me, it's not I don't connect it with a person in the ring. It's very clinical to me, and it's I've never. There's no emotion.
Yeah,
there's no
yeah.
anger. There's no animosity about
Good
it.
way of looking at it, because when you picture boxing, you sort of have that concept that you've got to G yourself up to hate the person on the other side of the ring.
Yeah, and you
didn't have one of those bloody things where you had a pre-match sort of like media conference where you start having a big punch on with bare knuckles and stuff.
I don't reckon I'd be very good at UFC. Hey, I don't
what
like
do you
that
think of
part
that?
of it.
Because that's like a huge thing now.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
And I just it's so brutal.
It is.
There's the mat turns a shade of red as the day progresses, and you just see these people getting the suitcase punched out of them. I can't watch it. I'll be honest with you. I struggle a little bit to watch it.
I also can't watch it.
Yeah. Probably a good thing.
For other reasons,
Probably
if you
a
know
good
what I'm saying.
It took me way too long.
So talk us through fight one.
Yes.
Fight one. Let's
So
go back to fight one.
We haven't slept. I had to get up in the morning. I had to go to the airport and pick Mum up. I was socially inept all day. I'd never felt anything like it. And I remember saying in no uncertain terms, I will never, ever do anything like this again in my life, because the way I feel right now is there's nothing that could be worth this. I'd never felt anything like it.
Yeah.
Probably because I wasn't good with feelings, guys. Just quietly. What are these feelings I'm having?
Yeah, because the self-awareness comes after this, hey?
Yeah. And I remember sitting there, my best mate, she was the first fight of the night, and she gets in and she wins. And I was like, yeah, the winning team. And then they hand her a microphone. And back then I was terrified of speaking.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to win.
Because I don't want to speak.
Because I don't want to speak in front of all these people. Yeah. And then next minute someone's tapping my shoulder going, your opponent's outdoors doing sprints, warming up. Like, you're on in a minute. And it was just a whirlwind. I remember.
And you were just sitting there watching your mate.
Yeah, I'm just watching a mate get taken out the back, gloves thrown on, mouth guard in. Yeah. Walk, and I remember being feeling just dazed by it. Just go out, and then you're in the corner, and then you go in. And I remember probably it was 20 seconds, and I thought, do you really want to do this? It's 20 seconds. I'd never felt so gassed. I was like, you can't keep up this work rate, because I push a high work rate. And I was like, maybe you just slow it up and think about defence. Well, I got hit a few times and I had to go back to plan A.
back to punching hard.
Yeah, back to punching hard. I remember going back to the corner, and my coach was like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? I don't know, because I don't know what's
I only started this 12 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Mate, I haven't slept for
He's
about
like,
a day.
what? Because he's like, you do not stop hitting until the ref makes you stop hitting. But when she covered and cowered, I would stop automatically. Like it was just
Nice
wait till, yep. I'll just wait till we're doing this again. And then I won it in the third round. So
after the coach kept telling you when
knockout?
she cowers.
Knockout?
Technical knockout.
Unreal.
So yeah, it was amazing. And I remember kind of,
What was that feeling like?
oh,
when
well, I
you just
didn't
all of
get
a
it.
sudden-
I was like looking around and then realised that the fight was over. And then it was just like, you could not get that microphone off of me.
Oh, wow. So that's something.
Oh, my goodness.
And then you were like, yeah, I just want to thank this person. I just want to thank. There you go. And yeah, shout out to all my homies back in Tassie. All that
and I just
sort of
think
stuff.
of the feeling I had the day before of not being able to fathom anything being worth that. And that paled into comparison to how I felt. And then just the pennies
total
that
elation.
dropped. Yeah, about it changed everything about what I believed, about how I processed our mindset, our ability to do anything, and the work rest ratio. I get like the ratio of I remember standing in front of the ring, looking at the next fights afterwards, and just thinking, I just did all of that for 12 weeks. There was I had to socialise different. I have to eat different. I had to train a lot. I had to put up with all that negative self-talk and fear and all of this. I had to change everything for 12 whole weeks for that, just between 4 and 6 minutes in the boxing ring, for under 10 minutes in the boxing ring. And I took that as a lesson on anything in life. It was like that tiny thing, that 4-5 minutes meant nothing to anybody else. So it has to mean something to you. And this is like that whole 12 weeks of discomfort and work is what you got to be willing to put in. And that really changed me a lot.
Would it have been worth it if you had lost the fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love the way you
you've done the
translate
work.
that to life.
Love
And
it.
go, like, that is the same as anything in life, that sometimes you got to put yourself through some of the hardest, most rigorous, consistent, put yourself out essentially.
Yeah.
And then even those, like you say, 10 minutes in the ring didn't mean anything to anyone else but
No.
you. Like,
Yep.
I didn't care.
And
I didn't care that you're in the ring. I didn't even know you're in the ring.
And no one sees all that stuff, do they?
No.
They
And
only
no one
ever
cares
see
if you win. I mean, they do, but they don't deeply care. They want you to win on the night, but they're all there for you whether you win or not. But you got to understand what it means to you, what you're really getting out of it. Otherwise, you can kind of chase the wrong bouncing ball.
I'd imagine jumping into a ring is not something you want to half-ass either. Yeah, you want to make sure you're absolutely ready, right? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, I love that story. That's awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks, Tiff, for sharing that.
We didn't plan this, but obviously this podcast is called Talkin Tough, mate. And we've got the Tough Cookie on here.
Yeah, we do.
And I have to ask this question because we ask everyone, and you've alluded to it a little bit, but is there a moment when in your life, whether it was in the boxing ring, wherever, that you feel like shit hit the fan?
Yes. There's probably been a few, really, but I guess...
One that you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. oh, we'll go for the big one. We'll go for the big rocks.
Why not?
So I guess it was realising and working through, and it wasn't a moment, like it was a journey, and it still is, and it was realising when that trauma came up in the boxing ring, and that was related to this years of being sexually abused as a child and not having told anyone or shared it and just kept that inside, realising that how much that had shaped my personality and my ability to be vulnerable and connect and be seen and communicate, all of the things. And that's a journey. And I think for a lot of people, it can, when you make that realisation and see that, oh, this is because of that, there's a real danger of getting stuck there. And there's a real danger of making it a label and going, I can't do this because of that. So, yeah, I think that's ebbed and flowed, and that's been, like I said, not a moment but a challenge. But it's also been, I remember journaling before I'd spoken about it to anyone. I remember writing stuff, and midway through journaling about it, midway through a sentence, I just started writing, I think maybe I should thank this guy, because I was aware of the strengths. Like, I would not change, I would not give back the silver linings of how I've developed because of that. So you just need, like, you can't get rid of the bad stuff and keep the good stuff.
That'd be that's a hard thing to get your head around.
Yeah.
Like, to get to a point of saying, maybe I should think.
I had one of the best trauma therapists on my show, Dr. Bruce Perry, and he wrote the book with Oprah Winfrey, What Happened to You?
Yeah.
And I said to him about that story, I said, why did I fall into that place? Like, what's the difference between people who get post-traumatic growth and people who develop it becomes an anchor, post-traumatic disorder or injury, we like to call it. And I'm still so curious about that. You know, we surround ourselves in good people, but until we're ready for something, look, I always think about if someone had to come and said to me in the beginning, before I'd made those realizations, come and said, you're actually not tough. You're actually scared of vulnerability and you've got this, this and this going on. I would have told them to get, like I wasn't ready to hear that. And you think about it, you can look at other people and hear a story and see where they are at with it. And they might still be resistant. And I'm just so curious about how we all take our journey and find our way through the stuff. How we can influence people, but we can't tell them. Like, I sat in that first therapy office which wasn't too far from here. And I remember sitting down with this guy, and it's like, all right, this has happened. These are the problems. All right, I'm ready. Here you go. Take my $200. Tell me what to do. Fix me, because you're the expert. You know.
It's that easy. Tap and go.
Was that easy? I remember session 4 with him. He goes, Tiff, normally by the second or third session, I have a real sense of who someone is and what they need from me, and I just don't get that with you.
Wow.
I was just sitting there going...
How did that make you feel?
Yeah.
I was like, you're the expert. I was like, well, I don't know then.
So what was he getting at with that? Like, it sounds to me like he was just saying, hey, I need you to be more honest and more open. Is it just you were just giving him surface level stuff?
I think so. Like, I think I still was so, if I look back, I wasn't
It's a timing thing, hey?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta be ready. I'd love to know, like,
I'm very analytical.
What made you want to go to therapy in the first place?
Because I could see that my relationships weren't deep and they weren't as good as they should be and could be. I knew that relationships were challenging for me, and not just intimate relationships, like family and friends. And I just felt like I had walls up, really big walls up.
Ironic that you said before that you had no defence when it came, in the boxing ring, but in life it sounded like you had the most impenetrable sort of defence ever, and just got these huge walls up. No one can get inside until obviously you've done some work on yourself and self-awareness and understanding, and then all of a sudden those walls started to come down. What was the apart from obviously therapy, you would have got some advice and tips and tools, and you would have had to get out there and actually work on yourself. What sort of things did you do?
It's just continual learning and self-awareness. And for me, biggest part of that's been in the boxing ring because it's everything is evident in that space if you look hard enough. Like how you do one thing is how you do everything. What is your self-talk like when you're in the middle of stuff? How do you react to things? How do you manage yourself in the middle of things? Do you feel? Do you feel when things are going on? I took a 3-year break between about 2016, I think, to 2019. And I'd done a lot of therapy and I knew I'd shifted a lot of the emotional stuff in that time. And I went back to my old coach in 2019 and I wasn't planning to fight straight up. I was just going for a session a week. And then we did the first session and I said, I might come every day. But I can't
When's the
fight.
next fight?
Yeah, I can't fight because I'm about to open gyms. Well, he didn't care about that. By the third or fourth session, he was like, you're fighting in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But
Other
the thing
plans.
is that first session back, I thought to myself, who am I going to be in the boxing ring? Because when I delved into therapy, I was well aware that you're pulling levers that span across your whole life. So if I'm going to work on this emotional lever and not feeling and being a little bit dissociated in the boxing ring and not having access to emotions in the present moment in crisis, if that's a strength there, but it's not really a strength in life, is it? But if I want to grab hold of it in life and invite it in, it's going to change me in the boxing ring.
What was different? What was different about 2019 to when you started 2016? And like,
So I translated the idea of just more self-care, more self-love. Like I cared about getting – it was harder for me to walk into punches because I didn't want to get hit now. So I'm willing to walk in and commit, but also not at the cost of getting hurt. And so when you pick that apart and go, I'm so much more tentative now and I'll advocate for myself. And if you ask something in training that I think is just unnecessarily brutal, then I'm going to stand up and say no now. Because I can do that, but I'm not going to do that at the cost of, what's needed.
but you wouldn't have said no early
Oh,
days.
God, no.
Yeah.
So there's a big element of recklessness in your life early days.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden.
And do you reckon that was looking back connected with your past, like you talked about, the sexual abuse and things like that, and trying to release some of that emotion that built up stuff that you probably hadn't dealt with of going, you know what, I don't care?
Yeah, and I think, like, when I was doing at that stage of doing the journaling, I was trying to pick apart because I'd never stuck at anything. So to stick at this boxing thing that I wasn't I had wins, but I definitely didn't feel naturally good at it. I felt like it was very hard. It was the first thing I'd done that with. And so I looked at the aspects of it and looked for what was landing with me. And for me, it was like this metaphor of I'm standing in this space and there's a person in there in front of me and they're trying to hurt me. And so there's a familiarity with that. But in this scenario, I'm standing in front of all these people and they can see. So I can be seen. Everyone can see what's happening here and they can
it's not
see that
hidden.
I can look after me, that I'm looking after me. They can see me doing that. And everyone can wish me the best, but no one else can help me but me. So it was these little ideas of that, the honesty of that. Like there's no secrets here. When you're not pretending to be my friend, you're trying to punch me in the face.
Yeah.
And so I think all of those little things became somewhat therapeutic for me.
Before we finish, Mike, we do it with everyone.
Yep.
We've got some quick fire questions.
Oh, look out.
Here we
Look
go.
out, you ready?
I'm not quick.
Tiff,
These ones, you've got these ones today, mate.
I got them. So snitty or steak, mate?
Steak.
Beach, bush or city?
Beach.
Yep. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Book, potty or tunes?
Potty.
Potty, of course. Yep. your own
Yeah, a
potty?
little bit biased.
Your own.
Yeah.
Our one.
Yeah,
Talk-
record
talk
to
Your
to
us.
episode.
Yeah.
Shout out to Roll with Punches. Check it out.
Worst advice you've ever got when it comes to your mental health?
Yeah, they were easy to start with, weren't they?
Yeah, no, you
Yeah,
threw
yeah.
that. Well, that's not a quick fire
Sorry.
question.
That's just quick
I
enough.
don't think I've ever listened to anyone's bad advice.
I love that.
Well, you talked to earlier, Tiff. One of the things that we always love to do on our podcast, Talkin Tough, is to talk about your perception of what tough meant when you were growing up, and obviously you had that extended period of time when you built up this big tough exterior on the walls, so you wouldn't let anyone in, and that was your version of tough back then. I'd love to hear, with everything that you've been through, and the self-development journey that you've been on, which is really admirable, and I commend you for being able to recognise it, but also to benefit or to get better in spite of it. What does tough mean to you these days?
I think it just means honesty. Like it's really, I think the toughest thing is to be honest and with both yourself, but with people, because that means hard conversations, and having difficult conversations is something that I was terrible at always. Confrontation or conflict, not good with it. I had this real kind of, I would automatically I can't think of the word for it. Just, it's, like be whatever the person was asking of me before thinking. So I'd often agree to things, whether it be in work or anything, agree to things, and then quite a while later reflect and go, actually that's because I was so quick to be like, I'll be whatever you need. I don't,
I can handle it.
Don't need to come into this, bam. And then later on be like, what would I say yes to that? So having difficult conversations and just being open, I think we place judgment on things before really unpack, like whatever our response is to something, to a degree it's kind of okay, but if we unpack the why around it, like why do I feel a certain something when I interact with Mike? And, Mike, you make me feel like, you make me feel like this. To be able to say that to people, I was talking to one of my mates, Bobby, and we're saying the same things. Like he has Tourette's, and I was talking about a client that I had that was really challenging. They had autism and some other things going on, and it was a young kid, and it was really confronting working with him. And when I was talking about that interaction, Bobby was saying the same thing. He was sharing how with Tourette's and some of the things that goes on for him. When he first started dating his wife, she came back from the bathroom and she sat down and she goes, "Are you violent?" Because she came back and he was sitting there kind of doing weird things and talking to himself. And it was like, he goes, "I was dating other people around that time and no one ever said anything." She asked. And it's like, it's okay to ask if the intention's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. Like, we're in such a precious world these days. Like, you might have the same experience. There's a girl that's had a similar experience to me that turned to boxing. I had her on my show. Her experience with fighting was the polar opposite to me. Boxing training was amazing, but she was completely disempowered because the story and the experience is different. So we don't know that until we're just honest and we have an open mind and we have conversations. And I think it's hard.
I love that.
I love that definition. Do you want to tell us about the show? Tell us a little bit about what's going on. What's it called? I mean, we know what it's called, but tell the listeners out there what's it called, what's it all about, where can they find you, and give us a bit of insight.
All right, it's called Roll with the Punches. It started out of lockdown boredom, and became a thing. I decided, I was in the fitness industry, and the gyms got shut down, obviously, and I kind of thought it would be the greatest disappointment in the world to spend this time doing however many PTs you were allowed to do a day, which wasn't money, to earn money.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to financially implode through this, I'm not going to spend my time trying to make money. So I'm going to spend my time doing something that cannot be taken away.
Yep.
So skills, network, and the podcast just kind of rolled out of that. You can find it anywhere you're probably finding this, unless it's YouTube. I don't put many on YouTube. And what else?
How many episodes are you up to so far?
Oh, nearly 600. I've recorded 600
episodes,
so yeah.
And it is very good. Listen to it. You've got a great way when you're, as you said earlier, you're being interviewed today. But as the interviewee, Ben and I know that we've been on twice and we've had an absolute blast every time. So
she must have been running out of guests when she
I
asked us back a second time.
Yeah,
you were
right.
so good. You were so good.
Yeah, so legless, blind and forgetful. So we go, let's do that one. That sounds great. Yeah, sweet. Let's get on that podcast. So Tiff, look, to be honest with you, today's gone exactly as I expected it to. You're such an easy person to talk to. You're very open. You're very honest. I really appreciate you, and we really appreciate you coming in and sharing some of the darker side, but also what an extraordinary journey of growth, hasn't it, Benny?
Yeah, mate, absolutely. And I want to thank you. And the reason I want to thank you, and you might argue with me about this, and I'm happy to argue about it now, but I could tell at the start that you didn't want to tell what you told halfway through. Or you were in your head thinking about,
should I?
Do I go there? Yeah. How do I say it? Can I say it? And I just want to say a massive thank you because that in itself is courage. That in itself is tough.
Tough.
And that in itself is your definition of tough. And that's the ability to be honest. But, mate, thank you so much for that.
Tiff Cooke, thank you so much for joining us. We absolutely loved having you on, and we wish you all the best for the future. We know that you're just heading from strength to strength, but, mate, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate
Thanks,
it.
lads. I had a ball.
And as always, if today's episode has hit you in the feels, has made you want to pick up the phone, ring a mate, check in with them, reach out to them. And if they don't pick up, you can also always call Lifeline 13 11 14. Catch you next time.